March 12, 2025. WikiLeaks releases the first volume of its LatAmDigest series. It is sourced exclusively from the classified GI files. Volume 1435 lays bare a specific, unreported detail. 7 covert operations took place in Latin America between 1960 and 1980. Those operations received indirect funding. The funding was tied to structures with direct links to the CIA. No written orders from top CIA officials appear in the published archives. There is a chasm between the popular claim that the CIA acted as the hidden mastermind and hard, formal evidence. These never-before-seen documents just drove that chasm wider. Between 1970 and 1985, Latin America is torn apart by a wave of catastrophic coups and armed conflicts. September 11, 1973. Socialist President Salvador Allende is overthrown in a military coup in Chile. March 24, 1976. Isabel Per is ousted from power in Argentina. The 1980s. Nicaraguan Contras wage a brutal guerrilla war against the ruling Sandinista government. For decades, the mainstream public narrative claims the CIA acted as the hidden mastermind behind these violent operations. In 2025, that narrative roars back into global headlines with the release of WikiLeaks GI files. 12 volumes of LatAmDigest are published between March and July 2025. An independent commission, led by former U.S. federal judge Richard Posner, is tasked with full analysis of these classified documents. Leading U.S. Latin American relations historian John Coatsworth also publishes a peer-reviewed study in the Journal of Latin American Studies on July 20, 2025. U.S. government officials respond to the WikiLeaks releases with a rigid, unified public message. April 15, 2025. CIA spokesperson Dean Thompson addresses a packed press conference. The CIA never masterminded any violent operations in Latin America during the 1970s and 1980s. Weeks later, U.S. State Department official historian Sarah Miller amplifies that same claim during a congressional briefing. Conspiracy theorists assert the CIA orchestrated the 1973 Chilean coup. There is no evidence to support that assertion. The official U.S. narrative goes further. It acknowledges that some low-level CIA agents may have had informal contacts with local groups. It frames those acts as isolated, rogue missteps, with zero connection to the CIA's senior leadership. U.S. officials repeat one core claim, unchanging: no document proves direct, top-down CIA command of any violent operation. The U.S. government claims the CIA never masterminded violent operations in Latin America during the 1970s and 1980s. 3 LatAmDigest volumes, 1384, 1390, and 1404, all published by WikiLeaks in 2025, reveal a documented pattern. Indirect financial ties existed. Informal on-the-ground cooperation occurred. Weapons transfers were carried out by CIA agents in those exact regions. No direct written orders from the CIA's senior leadership appear in these files. The connections between agents and violent groups are unambiguous. The U.S. State Department then claims there is no evidence linking the CIA to the 1973 Chilean coup. John Coatsworth, one of the world's leading, peer-recognized experts on U.S. Latin American relations, states in the July 20, 2025, issue of the Journal of Latin American Studies that corroborating, consistent clues exist. Bank accounts were funded by NGOs with direct ties to the CIA. Informal coordination took place between CIA agents and anti-Allende opposition groups. These contradictions go far deeper. One critical detail no one had dared to confront directly. First, WikiLeaks' March 12, 2025, release of LatAmDigest Volume 1384, from the classified GI files, lays out an unbroken paper trail. bank accounts were used to run disinformation campaigns against Salvador Allende in 1973 Chile. Those accounts received regular deposits. The deposits came from NGOs with long-standing, documented ties to the CIA. No written agency orders appear anywhere in the file. LatAmDigest Volume 1390, also released in 2025, pulls from a 1976 internal U.S. Embassy Argentina report. The report explicitly notes regular informal cooperation between CIA agents stationed in Buenos Aires and paramilitary groups linked to the March 24 coup. The word sponsor is absent from every line of the document. LatAmDigest Volume 1404 confirms CIA field agents supplied weapons to Nicaraguan Contras throughout the 1980s. CIA field agents also supplied handheld radios. The written orders authorizing these transfers come directly from the Reagan White House. They do not come from CIA senior leadership at Langley. LatAmDigest Volume 1432 adds sworn testimony from a redacted, former CIA covert operative. I received verbal orders to provide support to Nicaraguan opposition groups. No official written order is attached to the statement. Témoignage, the June 15, 2025, final report from the Posner Independent Commission confirms two key points. First, consistent circumstantial links exist. Second, no formal proof of direct command from the CIA's senior leadership. One overlooked detail was about to upend this carefully calibrated analysis. The bombshell is not that the CIA sponsored these violent operations. It is not that the US government's official story is true. The real revelation is this: both extreme, widely circulated narratives are false. The truth is far more nuanced. The US government's official narrative lies when it claims no evidence exists linking the CIA to these operations. The LatAmDigest volumes and the Posner Commission report both confirm three key facts. First, indirect financial ties. Second, informal on-the-ground coordination. Third, direct actions by CIA field agents during violent operations. The widespread public claim that the CIA was the hidden mastermind behind every operation overstates the documented evidence. No single classified document, memo, or signed order proves the CIA's top leadership, its director or executive board, issued a written or formal directive to sponsor any of these violent acts. Inference: the available evidence suggests this gap in formal proof may stem from the CIA's official document destruction policy in the 1970s and 1980s. Senior officials may have issued verbal orders only. They may have then scrubbed every trace of those orders from written records. That's when the story turns deeply, genuinely unsettling. Aujourd'hui. This is not just a 2025 historical debate. It strikes at the core of U.S. intelligence agency transparency. It directly shapes current global conversations about U.S. foreign intervention. No senior CIA official has ever faced criminal trial for these Latin American operations. The Posner Commission concluded no sufficient evidence existed to file formal criminal charges. The CIA rejected the Posner Commission's formal request to declassify 120 additional files on 1970s and 1980s Latin American operations. Its official, on-the-record reason has two parts. First, national security. Second, the protection of active and former covert operatives. This case also fuels widespread accusations of U.S. interference in 2024 Latin American elections, most notably in Guatemala, where NGOs tied to U.S. corporate and political interests were publicly exposed. No one outside the CIA's highest clearance levels knows what those 120 sealed, classified files contain. In 2025, two independent sets of records tell the same partial, damning story. The WikiLeaks GI files and the Posner Commission report confirm consistent, corroborating evidence of CIA field agents' involvement in violent 1970s and 1980s Latin American operations. No definitive, formal proof exists that the CIA's top leadership issued direct, written orders for these operations. This gap widens the chasm first opened by the 2025 WikiLeaks release, between the popular hidden mastermind narrative and the cold, documented facts. Is U.S. intelligence agency transparency still an untouchable taboo, 50 years after these covert operations took place? Subscribe to The Truth They Hide. Never miss the next episode. Never miss the next revelation.